Hey everybody, what's up? You can see right there, this is the, basically it says reading off the SSMB, SSMB written interview with Ian Flynn. You see, as many of you know, SegaBits did another interview with Ian Flynn called Ian Flynn Produced, if you will, and it ran for a little over 2 hours. And obviously he had quite a lot to say. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He had quite a lot to say. And I apologize in the background. Someone's riding a motorcycle or something outside. But he actually had quite a lot to say because it was very interesting. He said, and some of it's talked about here in the written interview. He basically talks about certain things that are going to be happening. Some things we've expected, some things we won't expect. He even hints at a few things. For example, one of the things in the audio interview, if you will, which you can find on YouTube, and later on this week as an MP on iTunes and on SegaBits.com as an MP3, basically he hints there's a possibility of Honey the Cat showing up possibly down the line. And some other things. Yeah, Honey the Cat. Believe it or not, she could be heading into the comics direction finally. A few other things. But one of the main, you'll find out more when you listen to the interview. And I suggest go to SegaBits here on YouTube. Take your time, listen to the interview. It's very intriguing. And if you want a transcript, go here to Sonic Stadium. To the Archie Sonic the Hedgehog comic discussion, or Archie Sonic the Hedgehog discussion, and you'll see exactly. Yeah, it's somebody on a motorcycle. You'll see exactly a bit of a transcript of what he's talking about. But here we have the written interview, and I'll provide a link to this as well. But the written one is done between Jason Berry and Ian Flynn. And here, Jason asks him some intriguing questions, some similar to what you will hear on the audio, and some that are not. So, let's get started. And all credit goes to Jason Berry and Sonic Stadium and SegaBits. All credit goes to them. So, let's get on with this. Let me get a drink of water here first. Refreshing Nestle Pure Life. It's good stuff. All right. Well, let's get started here. The first question Jason Berry asks is, and I quote, "You're a busy man. You're working on 4 books right now. Actually 5, counting your Kickstarter project with Don Best. I'm trying to read the name here. Sylvan. How do you find time to write all those?" And this is Ian Flynn's response. This is Ian Flynn's answer to the first question in response. Response and answer, I should say, to the first question. I quote, "In fits and starts. Some days I can knock out a lot in a day. Other days I'm caught up in other business." All right. And then the next question that is asked by TSZ, the Sonic Stadium, or Jason Berry, depending on who you want to ask. Next question is, "What's a typical workday like for you?" Ian's response, "I wish there was something quote-unquote typical. I've had days of almost non-stop email correspondence with creative jam sessions, days where I've had multiple scripts come in for revision, and days where I'm twiddling my thumbs." So basically what he's saying is that his typical work days are basically unpredictable. He doesn't know exactly what he's going to be doing from one day to another. Understandable. Very understandable. All right. Next question. Next question that's asked. Do you direct exactly what you want your artist to draw panel by panel, or is there a bit more freedom there? Ian's answer to that. I try to be directive while leaving room for artistic interpretation, giving clear panel by panel descriptions, page layouts, and the like. I take as much guesswork out of the composition as possible. That really helps the artist move through the page quickly. At the same time, if they got a better idea, I'm perfectly happy to let them work their magic. In other words, if basically they have a better idea for, like, if he has a certain script of dialogue and they feel that this is a better scene for that script of dialogue to be in, he'll let them do it. Next question. Next question they ask is, speaking of Salvan, I think that's the name of it, can you go into more detail on that book and your collaboration with Don Best? Ian Flynn's answer. It's a project Don's been okay, this is Ian Flynn's answer in response. It's a project Don's been tinkering with for, cripes, 15 years now or so? I was a big fan of it when she first tried to launch the project, and we've kept in touch about it ever since. It's a fantasy epic about a group of heroic bats set on a quest to find 5 crystal shards. Standing in the way are the ancestral enemies, the Hawks. Standing in the way are their ancestral enemies, the Hawks, and the recently awakened and very anti-bat god, Sungro. I'll be handling most of the writing duties for the main narrative, with Don doing, well, everything else. Sounds like to me that this is another their version of Silverwing from that novel and turned cartoon. Sounds a little bit like that. Next question. You are in your second year of doing Megaman. What have been some of the challenges so far in writing that book? Hold on for a second. And this is Ian Flynn's response. Initially, the biggest challenge came from having to adjust our plans. Originally, we were going to go straight from Spiritus Ex Machina to the Blackout Curse of Raw Moon. But then Mega Man's anniversary came up, and we were asked to acknowledge it, which is where Rock of Ages came from. And then the crossover came up. So we decided to not mangle the Raw Moon arc and tell some original stories to fill the time. Excuse me. Next question. Do you think you'll ever get a chance to... Okay, this is our next question. Do you think you'll ever get a chance at other Mega Man timelines? I'd love to see a Legends book. There are some great characters there. Ian Flynn's response, and he even talks about this in the audio review. This is his response, both, like I say, here and in the audio review. This is his response, and I quote, I want to write Mega Man X so much it hurts. But it all depends on the success of the current book. If folks want to see more Mega Man type books, you've really got to pour some attention, by which I mean money, into the current book. In other words, what he's saying is that he wants to do a spin-off comic of Mega Man based on Mega Man X, and the only way he can do that is for Mega Man to be as successful as Sonic's been, basically, and basically have enough revenue coming in for it to even consider doing a spin-off. Because that's how basically Sonic X and Sonic Universe were contrived. The only way they were contrived as spin-offs was because of the revenue the main comic was bringing in. Next question. What was the decision in making some of the robot masters good guys? Was it the fact that there would be more and more of them due to the sequels, which would be too much for him to handle? Or were there some personalities you liked that you wanted to keep around? Ian Flynn's response. It stemmed from the original Light series being good to begin with, and from Megaman's normally non-combative nature. Megaman wouldn't want his cousins dead, and they only attacked because of Dr. Wily's meddling with them. It only made sense they'd be repaired and given a second chance. That, and they show up in the later games, to one degree or another. So they needed to return. Might as well get the most mileage out of the characters, right? Okay, and what he means by there is, if you take a look at some Mega Man other media with Mega Man, you kind of get the idea of what happens to some of the robots, like robotic friends of his, Like I think Roll, and think it was a Network or something like that, and the Network anime or something like that, got hacked into and basically put a virus into, and she was basically manipulated to do whatever whoever did it to her said and made her do. In fact, they even enhanced her. I think one time, I remember catching it, I think one time they said, let's enhance her a little bit, give her fangs, and boom, they gave her fangs. Go figure. Alright, next question. Now we have Mega Man and Sonic together in Worlds Collide. This would be a dream project for many fans and gamers. How excited were you to get to work on this? Ian's response? I think the squill I made registered only for dogs. Alright, next one. Next question. We already have Sonic and Mega Man fighting right on panel 1. What is it about the personalities that would clash? Ian Flynn's answer. Ultimately, it's Sonic's fault. He's in a tense situation. He sees a robot he's pretty sure has been kidnapping his friends, and he's not going to stop and ask it to politely stop. He's going to do what he always does, smash the robot. Mega Man, by this point, has learned that when he's threatened, he needs to put the attacker down before trying to play nice. They both get into the personal versions of Get the Job Done, and the sparks fly. Next question. Sonic or Mega Man? Who has the better rogues gallery in your opinion? Ian Flynn. Ian Flynn's answer. Are we specifically games only or comics too? I guess I'd fall more towards Sonic, since the majority of his enemies are more fleshed out than Mega Man's. But give the comic enough time, and they'll easily be on par. Alright, next one. Next question. Eggman has used the Genesis wave, and now we have a Sega-centric Sonic world. What was the decision for not having any of the characters from the comics? Was it mainly for new readers? And again, this is a similar question I think you'll get in the audio interview. And this is Ian's answer here. Ian Flynn's answer. The entire arc was built with the new and casual readers in mind. With just Sonic game-centric friends in Mega Man's world, the cast is already cumbersomely large. Adding in the comic exclusive cast would just overburden it. Adding in the comic exclusive cast would just overburden the story with characters and subplots. It was also for the sense of linking the stories up, by making it clearly an extension of the most recent games. We can play. It was also for the sense of. Not the sense, ease. I'm sorry about that. It was also for the ease of linking the stories up, by making it clearly an extension of the most recent games. We can play with all the past stuff in Mega Man, and I don't want this to turn into the Sonic Show guest starring Mega Man. Get it? He says, I didn't want this to turn into the Sonic Show guest starring Mega Man. Alright. Next question. This is the next question they have for them. For Ian. In the written interview. Okay. Related question, and a big one that requires a little bit of tiptoeing. But many fans have had this concern. Since there have been a lot of, shall we say, quote-unquote, backstage shenanigans as of late, what are the chances of the Sonic comic experiencing a, quote-unquote, 52 reboot of sorts? Ian's answer? I'm not discussing our post-crossover plans right now, especially in that context. Next question. Now I've got an image of you, Paul, and John Gray doing some backstage shenanigans. Can you have John draw that one? Or can you have John draw that for me? Ian's response? You don't have quote unquote John Gray do things for you. He just sort of does. He's a force of nature. Next question. You've either created or retooled many older characters, Fiona, Scourge, Shard, and given them a new lease on life. Which one has been your favorite to create/redesign? Ian's response. Scourge was kind of thrilling since it was my first real job in the comic. Fiona was satisfying just to give her a solid voice and direction. I'm really happy Shard has been so heartily embraced by the readers. For a favorite, I guess it's a toss-up between Scourge and Shard. Alright, next question. What do you feel has been your biggest accomplishment in the series so far? Ian's response? Or Ian's answer? When I see a lot of talk of when to jump into the series, folks typically recommend jumping straight into my run. I came in with the intention of tightening things up and making the book fun again, and I think I've done that. Although I think some fans would argue differently. Alright, next question. After Worlds Collide, you'll be starting on At All Costs Part 2. Can you give us some details? Ian Flynn. This is Ian Flynn's answer. It will deal with Nagus' control of the throne and Tails' dollar attack on the city. It'll also be something of an introduction to the next story arc and the long-term agenda for the book. Next question. Of all the Sega Sonic game stories, which one would you like to adapt/write into the comic? Ian's answer? I'd like to give Sonic Heroes a shot. To tighten it up, and better define its link to Shadow's game. Part of me wants to give Sonic 06 a shot, specifically for a few scenes I'd like to do over. Next question. I think you did a fantastic job on the Chaotix quest. Is it hard to write a story with a balance of action, drama, humor, and warmth? Ian. I'm trying to think how to phase this without sounding like an egomaniac, but not for me. I just set out to write a story I like to read. There are other factors, of course, and people who help keep me focused and to revise, but it's not something I typically struggle with. Next question. One of my favorite characters is the good Metal Sonic, Shard. He seems to be going through a bit of a Pinocchio complex where he wants to be more alive/accepted. Can you give any details on his future? Ian Flynn. Fans wanted him to stop being so smashed to bits. Okay, this is Ian Flynn's answer. Fans wanted him to stop being smashed to bits every time he shows up. So I'll be avoiding Metal Sonic death as much as possible now. Next question. Oh, crap. What did I do? I just lost it. Hold on. Okay, here we go. Next question. Shadow has not appeared much lately in the comics, despite his popularity with the fans, kids especially. Ian's answer. That's mostly been circumstantial. We've just had to prioritize other stories. He's in the crossover, and I'm hoping we'll do something Shadow-centric shortly after the crossover. Next question. In Lockdown, we saw an alternate reality jail that had both Memphilis and the Werehog. Any chance we'll be seeing either of these two in the comics? Ian Flynn? Quite possibly. They're both pretty popular. And there goes my dog in the background. Alright, sorry about that, folks. My dog was barking at some kids in the front. Alright, next question. If you got to redo Sonic's world to your own personal liking, what would that be like? Ian Flynn's answer. It'd be much closer to the games, with locations and events as close to the game canon as possible. At the same time, the comics is endured by introducing heroes and villains from around the world, so I wouldn't be messing with that formula. So you'd have Sonic and the Freedom Fighters battling the Eggman Empire in the various game zones, helped and hindered by original Mobians. Also, the Master Emerald wouldn't have been made out of a mammoth. There'd be no human/overlander confusion, and Knuckles' backstory wouldn't be he was a hot pocket of destiny. Alright, next question. Well, I know there's been some ideas you've had that Paul's had to say no to. Has Paul had any ideas that you've said no to? Ian's answer. Only one comes to mind, and it was a off-the-cuff thing he tossed out there for consideration. It involved turning Ash Mongoose into a new villain, turned monster-like by a corrupted pull of the source of all. So yeah, there you go, folks. Apparently Ian shot down the possibility to have a real reason for some of you that don't like Ash Mongoose, to have a legit reason for it. He shot it down. Alright, next question. Which story was the hardest to write? The most fun? Ian's answer. I guess Genesis was a bit harder to pull together than others. I don't remember why, just that I get the feeling it took a bit more effort. I don't know if I can pin down just one as being most fun. Bo Sparrow and Alan Quayle's bits in Chaotic Quest were a delight. The entire Eggman arc was a joy. Order from Chaos came together so perfectly, and the Proto-Man's origin story over in Megaman was so very satisfying to put together. Next question. A long while back in the Sonic Adventure adaptation, Amy used magic to make herself older to be more appealing to Sonic, which in turn is how she changed her looks. But since she's likely more closer to Sonic's age than Tails, why is she still being treated as a kid? Ian's answer. She hasn't during my run. If she's treated differently, it's because she's got a volatile nature. You don't expect Tails to ever flip out over something and smash you with a hammer, do you? Next question. Out of the Sega Sonic characters, who is your top 5 and bottom 5? Ian's answer, in no particular order. Top 5, Bean, Big, Knuckles, Espio, Blaze. Honorable mention, Professor Prickle, and Wintoes. Bottom 5, Marina, Doc Gaia, Metal Overlord, and the Babylon Rogues. Okay, that's 6. Sue me. Alright, next question. Some Sega Sonic characters take a while to grow on the fans. Big and Cream, for example, I still don't care for. Okay, Big and Cream, for example. I still don't care for Chip. Which character did you not care for, but grew on you over time? And this is the last answer, last question, last answer, so, of the written interview. And this is what Ian says. And this is Ian, this is what he says, and I quote, "If I was certain I'd hate Chip, but he was played perfectly. Little comedic moments, but mostly out of the way. And he pulled his weight during the final boss fight. I hated Cream out of principle at first, but once I figured out where she fit into things, grew to love her. I hated Big at first since he seemed so out of theme. Now I've seen the light and become a big lever." All right, and then they kind of mention that they have the audio interview as well, and I'll provide a link to both. But that is basically Ian's answer. So, kind of in the written interview, which some of these same questions were asked in the audio interview. So you're bound to get the audio answers as well down the line. But anyway, I thought I'll just let you guys know about that. Let you guys listen in to what the written interview was. I'll provide a link down below so you guys can read it yourself. And that's about it. Comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. And I'll talk to y'all later.